Welcome to the Ghostly Gallery podcast. It's a place where we explore the world of horror in film, literature, television, and popular culture. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Bruce Markison. And once again, I'm joined by co-host and producer Tracy Asteria. Tracy, what's new with you?
Not too much, Bruce. Definitely enjoying the spring weather that we're getting here in Nova Scotia. How's everything been with you?
We're doing okay here. We're doing okay. Tonight, we're going to be talking about some new films that have come out. This has really started out as a pretty good year for horror, and we're going to talk about some recent theatrical releases. They've been in the theater. Now they're starting to become available on streaming. So I think this is kind of a good time to be a fan of horror. If this is any indication of what's to come for the rest of 2024, well, it's probably going to be a good omen. Hint, hint, if you know what I mean.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. So Tracy and I tonight are not going to talk to a guest. We're going to just talk to each other and have some fun talking about two new horror films. They came out earlier this year, and they're really quite new, and both have been getting headlines. Both have been getting a lot of publicity and generally favorable reviews. One of them, in case you weren't able to tell from my awful hint the moment ago, is The First Omen, which is a very interesting film, a prequel to the original Omen, which came out in 1976. We're going to talk about that. The other film is really a great movie, one that I am absolutely thrilled about. Not that I'm not thrilled about The First Omen, but the other film I think is an instant classic. It's called Late Night with the Devil. And that's a look back at a talk show from 1977 and a night where pretty much everything that could go wrong did go wrong. So, Tracy, we're going to begin with The First Omen. It's a movie directed by Arkasha Stevenson. This is probably a breakthrough horror film for her. It has received very strong reviews, set in the year 1971, and it does serve as the direct prequel to the classic 1976 film, one of the most frightening horror movies I've ever seen, The Omen, with Gregory Peck and Lee Remick and David Warner. A phenomenal movie, one that truly scares me. I'm not scared by that many, but The Omen is definitely one of them. Now, this new film, The First Omen, stars a very young British actress named Nell Tiger Free. She plays Margaret. She is a young American novitiate who is training to be a nun, and she has been assigned to Rome to work at an orphanage. And at first glance, seems like a pretty good place to work. Then, shortly after Margaret's arrival, she starts to become a little bit worried, a bit disturbed about certain developments. One of them involves one of the orphan girls staying there, Carlita, who has really nightmarish visions, but is not treated with a lot of sympathy at the orphanage. In fact, she's treated poorly, and at one point, she is placed in something called the bad room. I had a fairly strict upbringing, but I was never placed in a bad room like this. So just an indication that this was maybe not the most heartwarming orphanage that you could have been assigned to back in the day. Then a really disturbing incident happens. One of the other young sisters commits suicide. She actually sets herself on fire while standing at the top of a balcony. And then as she is literally in flames, she, I guess, jumps off the balcony and is hanged. So she's sort of killed in two different ways. Now, Margaret watches this from below in absolute horror and obviously becomes very concerned. Shortly thereafter, she starts to learn of a conspiracy that's taking place at the orphanage. This information is coming from a longtime priest named Father Brennan. And Father Brennan informs Margaret that some members of the church are actually trying to set the stage for the birth of the Antichrist. And then I guess what they're trying to do is they want this creature, if you will, to be born, and then they want to be able to control it in some way. It's a crazy plan, as Margaret says when she first hears about it. That's insane, and it really is. So that's kind of the background to the film. That's the basic gist of it. You had a chance to watch this, as did I, earlier this week. So let's begin, Tracy, by getting your thoughts on this movie, The First Omen.
Well, it's a big movie. I'll definitely say that. I I'll admit I don't really recall too much of the original film, The Omen, and I'm not 100% sure that I ever actually watched any of the follow-up movies. I'm not sure why they just haven't been on my radar, but it could be that maybe I was only 3 when the original movie came out, and by the time movie rentals became a big thing in the '80s, well, my mom and dad wouldn't let me see it because it was so darn scary, right?
Why wouldn't
Um,
your parents let you watch it at the age of 3? That doesn't seem reasonable.
I know, right? How sad is that?
Yeah.
But you would think when I became like, 10 and 12 years old,
Yeah.
that would be a perfect time. But it was just one of those films that my mom and dad were like, nah, I don't think so. So I really wanted to see this movie. I saw a few trailers, I read a few articles, and I was really looking forward to seeing it. So, I went into this viewing just like I would with any other prequel, to get into that mindset where, it's a standalone movie, watch it, forget that it's part of a franchise, and take the story for what it is. Um, I didn't want to have any preconceived notions or any elevated levels of expectation because it's such a popular franchise and it's long standing. I mean, the original Omen, it was released, I think, back in '76, I
Yep.
want to say. And, it's like almost 50 years old. And, you know, it's a classic, quite frankly. Um, but this film, I thought it was a decent story. It kind of reminded me somewhat of Rosemary's Baby in a way.
Mm.
Um, the film managed to address the thoughts and theories of some of the viewers of the original Omen movie about the Antichrist child. It's, in my opinion, it's definitely worth a watch. The atmosphere feels quite dark. Um, and it wasn't kind of filmed like a modern movie. It really was filmed like it was done back in the '70s, in my opinion. It has that '70s feel.
Yeah, I would agree. I think right off the bat, we need to establish that while this is a good movie and I liked it a lot, it's not as good as the original. I mean, the original is one of the absolute classics of the genre. It's a
Mhm.
4-star movie. You've got Gregory Peck, legendary actor. Lee Remick is great as his wife. They end up adopting this child, Damien, because their newborn baby has actually died. Only Gregory Peck's character, Mr. Thorne, knows that. She does not. So he sort of pretends that Damien was actually, their natural child. And as it turns out, he's not. He's obviously the son of the devil, the son of Lucifer, and
Exactly.
not a good situation. It's an incredibly scary movie. Some of the scenes in it with the dog, with the nanny at the party, um, some of the confrontations involving supernatural forces against priests. I mean, there's
Mhm.
some really frightening scenes. The music is haunting. It's one of the most frightening films I've ever seen, and it's extremely well done. High level actors, all at the top of their game. So I think it's important that people go into watching The First Omen not thinking that this is going to be as good or is going to match it. It'd be very hard to match it, to be quite honest. But I think on its own
Exactly.
merits, it's a good film.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
I think
agree.
I maybe like it a little bit more than you do. But at the same time, I'm not gonna put it in the same category as the first Omen movie. Now, you mentioned, Tracy, some of the follow-ups and the sequels that you haven't
Mhm.
seen. So there was Omen 2, there was Omen 3, and they all came out late 70s, early 80s. Then there was a remake of The Omen done, I want to say about 15, 20 years ago. Liev Schreiber, very good actor, takes on the role of Gregory Peck. The Gregory Peck role is Mr. Thorne, the father. And it's a competent movie, but again, it doesn't quite match the original. So the original film is really, that's kind of the litmus. That's the standard. And if you're trying to reach that level, very difficult to do. And this new movie
Right.
really doesn't do that. Now, the film does start out slowly. The first half hour, little bit plotting, whereas the second movie we're going to talk about later, Late Night with the Devil, I think pretty much grabs you right from the start. So the first half hour, kind of a setup. This young Margaret, training to be a nun, taken to this local nightclub, and there she is tempted with alcohol, which may or may not have been spiked. She's also tempted with a young man. And then she blacks out, really has no memory of what happened for most of the evening. That's always a bad sign.
Mhm.
Then it does become obvious that, something happened during that blackout period. This young man that she was dancing with is shortly thereafter killed by a runaway truck. But it doesn't seem like an accident. It seems like this was set up, this was engineered by some dark force. Now, after the nightclub scene, which I think was a little bit too long for my liking, they really stayed at that nightclub, or that disco, I guess, as you might say it was. This is, again, early 1970s. I think they really kept it there too long. They dragged that scene out a little bit beyond my liking. But once that scene is over and done with, I think that's really where the story starts to pick up. As Margaret begins to wonder what in the world is going on in this orphanage. There's a disturbing scene where one of the girls, and I couldn't tell if she was an orphan or if she is one of the young sisters training to be a nun. She's like on a bed or a table. She appears to be giving birth to some kind of a creature. This causes Margaret to pass out. Kind of makes you wonder, is she really seeing this, or is she having some sort of hallucination? But it's clearly a sign that things are not good at this orphanage. And then you have the scene of the suicide, which is witnessed by Margaret. Very traumatic, obviously, and really reminiscent of the first Omen from 1976. You have that infamous scene where they have the birthday party for Damien outside of the Thorns' home. And then the nanny, the young nanny, after kind of getting into a stare down with the dog, she's sort of put into some kind of a trance. She climbs all the way up to near the top of the building, uh, very famously yells out, "It's all for you, Damien." And then she
Right.
jumps from the building. She's got a noose around her neck. So this is seen by all the children at the party. I mean, this is the kids' party to end all kids' parties, right? And
Right.
the expression on Lee Remick's face is just incredible. I mean, absolute shock, aghast at what has happened. So the scene in the newer film, The First Omen, it's not quite as dramatic, but it's very reminiscent. And I believe she says, as she's about to light herself on fire, she says something like, as she's looking down into the crowd below, she says something like, "It's this is all for you." So it's again very reminiscent. They want you to think of the first movie, The First Omen from 1976, and certainly that scene does it. I'm curious, Tracy, what'd you think of that scene?
Wow. That scene was disturbing. It was very powerful. Like it really I don't know why I didn't expect what I saw, considering, it is so reminiscent from the first movie,
Hmm.
but it was still pretty freaky. Just, I think they did a really good job with it. Um, Again, it was in front of all the children at the orphanage, and everybody was shocked, stunned. But at the same time, some of the children were still playing like it was no big deal. So it was so weird, but it was definitely impactful. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
Just to see the young nun. I mean, she had that creepy smile on her face, and then she just set herself on fire and away she went. I was somewhat horrified, and I usually don't get bothered by a lot, just like you, but
Yeah.
there was just something about that scene with that just kind of made me go, oh, it was like a gut punch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
One thing I noticed also, Tracy, it looked like Margaret was the only one down on the ground who saw what was happening, realized that this was going to be a suicide attempt. Because she basically is like yelling, "No, stop, don't do it." And everybody else is just sort of watching. Margaret is the only one who really wants to react and step in and stop it. But by then it's too late for her to do it. So you
no,
really
yeah,
you get a sense that, she's very sharp, uh, moral. She wants to help people. She really understands before anybody else that this young nun in training is not just, at the top of the building, getting attention. No, she's about to kill herself in some manner. And
exactly.
yeah, the surprise, I guess, is that she starts with the fire and then she ends up hanging herself. So it's kind of a double whammy. But I agree with you. It's a very powerful scene. This actress who plays Margaret is really good. Her name's Nell Tiger Free. She's only about 24 years old. And in this film, she does a great job. She really carries the movie. Very likable character, good morals, though at times not completely resistant to temptation, as we see in the disco scene, that nightclub scene early on. So, like, any young girl, and I think she's probably a teenager in the movie, even though in real life she's
Hmm.
24. So, I mean, she's young. She's, not had a lot of experiences in life. So, like anybody, there's temptation. And she, I guess, gives into it a little bit in that nightclub scene, at least until she passes out. And then we don't really know exactly what happens until later on. Clearly, she's the star of the movie, and she does a great job carrying it. Other interesting actors and characters here. You've got the character of Father Brennan, who is this older priest, and he seems to know what's going on. He's sort of whispering into Margaret's ear, telling her, this is a dangerous place. Be careful what you do, dealing with this young orphan, Carlita, who is very troubled. She warns Margaret that Carlita is very dangerous. I'll tell you what, other than Margaret and Father Brennan, I don't trust anybody else in this movie at all. Not from the beginning to the end of the movie. And I guess the way the movie ends up, without giving it away, kind of justifies that feeling. They're the only two that I think are legitimate. And as they appear, everyone else, I don't trust him at all. You agree?
Yeah, I completely agree. The characters, they like the young girl that played Margaret and the young girl that played Carlita. I thought they were outstanding. The Carlita character, I really didn't know what to think about her though, Bruce. Um, I felt empathy towards her for her situation, but at the same time, like the trust factor wasn't there either because
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out, if she was a good character or not. So I totally get that. I really do get that.
Yeah, she's a little more complicated in some ways,
Mm.
and the ending of the film will provide some revelations. All in all, I think this was a well done movie. Um, I I had more expectation for it going in because I'd read a lot of positive reviews. Maybe fell a little bit short of that, but I think overall it was good. It's the sixth film in the Omen franchise, and I would have to say one of the better ones. Might be the second after the original from 1976. It's well acted. It is well done. It's a film that doesn't rely on jump scares. It's a little more sophisticated, a little more subtle in some ways. Has an interesting twist at the end, which I started to see coming maybe 5 minutes before it was revealed. Maybe others saw it before me, but it's a good twist the way that it ended. I also thought it was very cool. They had a photograph of Gregory Peck's character from 1976 was shown toward the end of the film. So that was a nice nod to history there. I'd say it's very good. I'll give it 3.5 stars. I liked it.
Oh, nice.
What would you say, Tracy? How do you rate it?
Oh my goodness. I really, 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 truly wanted to love this movie. Um, I found it just a touch too long. It was almost 2 hours. And I totally agree with you. Like that disco scene, like there were certain things that they could have pared down a bit just to make it an easier watch. Again, I think the performances were really great. I feel like that little one, Carlita, she has so much more story to be told. The supporting cast members, they gave great contributions. And again, like you mentioned, this movie gave several nods to the original Omen movie, which I thought was excellent. I definitely don't want to give the ending away, but it was really fascinating. That kind of ending really gave a good entryway to the original Omen film. Yeah, I definitely don't want to give that away, but I I sense that there could possibly be a couple of more stories, like sequels to that movie. Um, the director, Arkasha Stevenson, she's the writer, director. I want to say it might be her first film. She only has a few credits on her IMDb. So she's young, she's upcoming. So I do think that a sequel is possible because the story is there. Um, I would probably give this 2.5 stars for now. I would love to see this movie again. And actually explore the whole Omen franchise kind of like over a couple of weeks. Just watch those movies and then go back and revisit that movie to see if my scoring, I guess, would improve, because I think it's important to maybe link them all together, if that makes sense. Because I did go back and watch the original Omen last night, and it was really good. Like it was. So, it would be nice to see them all kind of together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is 1971. It's 5 years before the plot of the Omen from 1976. So there's room for some other stuff in between. I think you make a good point about the length of the film. I'm kind of with one of our past guests. Remember, we had Alok Mishra, the producer of 1BR on, and he has a rule. Horror movie, get it done in an hour and a half. If it goes beyond that, I start to lose interest. So I think that's a good rule of thumb. This was about an hour, 50, hour 55. So it could have been cut a bit. I think that's a legit criticism. So you're a tougher grader than me. You give it 2.5. I go with 3.5 stars, but definitely worth seeing. The First Omen, which serves as the prequel to the franchise, really. All right, Tracy. So now we're going to move on to our second new film. And this is one I'm really excited about. I'm not sure exactly how you feel about it, but I'm really gung-ho about Late Night with the Devil. which has been in theaters, is now in on Shudder, featured also on some other streaming services. Late Night with the Devil starts with an opening narration that's done in kind of a documentary style, and it provides background information about the main character in the film. His name is Jack Delroy, and it traces his very successful late night talk show called Night Owls. And as we see in this documentary introduction, Delroy has really, kind of climbed in popularity, and he's become a legitimate rival to Johnny Carson. He wants to be the late night king of TV, late night TV. And at some point, he's almost even with Carson, but he's not quite overtaken him. So we get a sense that this is a guy who's had some success. Now, once the introduction is done, the film really gets into the heart of the matter. It presents a live television broadcast done in real time of the show Night Owl, and it's Halloween night in 1977. Delroy is the host of the show. Now, he has recently lost his wife to cancer. She died about a year earlier, and he's now facing rumors that his show might be canceled due to declining ratings. Looks like he's kind of lost his passion for doing the show, and that's understandable given the passing of his wife. He's maybe not as into it as he once was. So he decides, I'm going to make one last stand here. And he wants to put together this very special program for Halloween night featuring a psychic, a magician, and a young girl who actually appears to be possessed by a demon. And Delroy hopes the shock value provided by these guests will lead to huge ratings and a rejuvenation for the show. If things go the way he expects, everybody's going to be talking about the show the next morning. Well, as it turns out, everybody will be talking about the show the next morning, but it's because of unexpected developments that take place. It leads to a catastrophic evening in front of a live studio audience and also millions of TV viewers across the country. Now, in addition to seeing the live presentation of the show, and again, it's all done in real time, we also see and hear what is going on behind the scenes during commercial breaks. And this is really crucial because this gives us insights into what Jack Delroy is really thinking. Also, what his very nervous sidekick Gus is thinking, because Gus at one point thinks, this is getting crazy. We're getting into dangerous territory. We need to coil back on this. So we get a sense about what Gus thinks of this whole thing. And then there is the other side of the coin, this rather slimy producer, Leo, he just captures the look of 1977 with facial hair, the long hair, the glasses, the whole deal. He's a slimy producer. All he's interested in is maximizing the ratings. And he's the opposite of Gus. He wants Jack to go full steam ahead, hold nothing back at this point. So we get a sense of this behind-the-scenes soap opera that is developing. Now, the film stars really talented actor, and he's become a favorite of mine very quickly, David Smalchin. He's a guy that we have seen in a number of horror-related films, and he was in The Last Voyage of the Demeter, kind of a secondary role. He was one of the crewmen on the ship, but he's also had small roles in The Dark Knight. He has been in the Batman TV series called Gotham. Here's a chance, though, for him to take on the starring role, and he does not disappoint. So he's great as Jack Delroy. He's just phenomenal. Also outstanding is actress Laura Gordon. She plays a character named June Ross Mitchell, who is the guardian to the young girl fighting against the demon. And that young girl, by the way, is played by an actress, Ingrid Torelli, and she is also terrific. I mean, she is mesmerizing. The stare that she gives Jack Delroy and some of the other guests on the show is just out there. It's just wild. A lot of strengths to the movie, Tracy. The film does a great job of recreating a feel of a 1970s talk show. from the polyester clothes Delroy is wearing. And they're kind of ill-fitting too. You know, the pants are not quite long enough and the arms are not quite long enough. Kind of looks like
Yes.
a lot of 1970s suits. Very reminiscent of what I grew up looking at and sometimes having to wear as well. There's the graphic panels that they use going to commercial and coming back from commercial. I mean, it's just spot on. It just has every look of a 1970s talk show. I felt like I was watching the Merv Griffin show or the Mike Douglas show all over again. And yeah, I used to watch those shows on a regular basis. Desmalchian plays Delroy as a very charismatic on-air personality, smooth in his delivery, funny. He's got streaks of warmness and charm. But there are also questions about how far he is willing to take this Halloween special and what extremes he is willing to go to in his all-out quest for higher ratings. So, yeah, on the surface, he seems like a pretty good guy, but you kind of get the sense that boiling under, he's willing to do anything for the ratings, even if it means kind of stooping to shameful levels. Now, I think, Tracy, this is a film that should make an absolute star out of David Desmalchian. Here's a fascinating person. He had drug problems in his younger years, but he overcame them. He has been working in Hollywood for just under 25 years. He's already compiled 87 film and TV credits, so he's prolific. As I mentioned, he's been in Gotham. He's been The Last Voyage of the Demeter. He has a very unusual look, very dark features, and he has this quirky manner that almost always makes him interesting to watch. When he's in a scene, your focus tends to be on him, no matter how large or how small his role is. And as an added bonus, he also happens to be a huge fan of classic horror and old school monsters. One of the things I learned in doing research about the film, he actually wrote an article for Fangoria magazine about regional horror hosts. And he was the guy who, because of his love of horror, was able to convince co-director Colin Carnes to hire him for the movie. So he's an easy guy for us to root for. He likes horror. He likes the old school monsters, the Universal classics, just like we do. And he's very passionate about his filmmaking, and he's just an outstanding actor. Another interesting character that we should mention is this magician illusionist with the great name of Carmichael Haig. I mean, whoever came up with that name deserves a bonus. Carmichael Haig is played by an Australian actor named Ian Bliss. Haig is a very slick personality, highly intelligent, but also highly skeptical that there are supernatural forces and demonic possession. And he's very condescending toward the other guests. He thinks that they're all perpetrating hoaxes. He doesn't think that they're legitimate. He's completely arrogant and confrontational, which kind of offsets the fact that he is well-spoken, intelligent guy. Here's another interesting thing that I learned about the movie, Tracy. Carmichael's character is actually based on a real-life magician named James Randi, whom I had not previously heard of. Now, like Carmichael does in the movie, Randy used to offer a large reward of money to anyone who could prove that their supernatural powers were legitimate and not faked. I mean, he would offer checks of $10,000 or more dollars. Now, Randy died just a few years ago, 2020. He was 92 years of age. And as it turns out, no one was ever able to convince Randy of their abilities and get the money. So he put people up to this challenge, but in his mind, nobody ever met the challenge, so he never gave the money away. So those are some random thoughts on the film. Interesting characters, great story, well acted. Let me get some of your thoughts on this one, Late Night with the Devil. What'd you think of it?
I thought it was excellent. I had seen many ads, both in print and video, and this movie totally piqued my interest. I wasn't sure what to expect because, that whole concept of found footage, that can kind of go either way. So I wasn't sure if it was going to give me the Blair Witch Project vibes or Paranormal Activity vibes. I wasn't too crazy about those kind of movies. So as much as I wanted to see it, I really didn't know how to take it. But this movie was so different, Bruce. Like you mentioned, it had that very 1970s feel, that atmosphere, the old school talk show type genre. I liken it to like a 70s version of the Maury Povich show or Jerry Springer with just that slight touch of Bob Barker and The Price is Right. Watching it, I totally felt like I was a member of the live studio audience. And at times, I thought I was a member of the production team and the camera crew. Just, it was so wild, like the crazy camera work, and it was really awesome. It was such a cool concept, and the prologue at the very beginning gave a lot of insight onto what this was going to be about. And it was narrated by Michael Ironside. So he was just like the perfect fit to give that overall prologue. The cast was so excellent. David was amazing as Jack. You know, I totally agree with everything you said about him as an actor. You know, I felt empathy towards him, that little hint of sadness. You know, he just won me right over. He was struggling after the death of his wife, and he honestly was just trying to make it to the top. And, you know, he was going to do whatever he needed to do at whatever cost. And we learn exactly what that cost was. But I'll take a second to give a shout out to Ingrid Torelli, who played the potentially possessed girl, Lily. She was phenomenal. She was hypnotic and creepy, and the way she spoke, and just like you said, like looking into that camera and looking at Jack, you know, it left, you know, me with the shivers. During the transition scene, you know, where she became the devil, I guess, it was so freaky and it was just so well done. I mean, she's 18 years old, Bruce. She's from Australia. She's a newcomer. You know, she's only been in a few things and she did phenomenal. So she deserves like big kudos. I can't say enough of good things about this film. It's not gory, it's not over the top. It's not slow, it's not boring. Um it was really great. I mean, you know, there was one scene that kind of was somewhat gory, but you know, you learn it's an illusion. So it was an excellent blend of something different in the horror genre. For me, it was like the right kind of story at the exact right moment in time. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you make some great points. There was that scene where there's a little bit of graphic vomiting that goes on.
Yes.
And then we learn about some developments that take place off screen after that. And then there's the scene with Gus, who's under hypnosis, and he thinks he's being infested by bugs. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But
Mhm.
yeah, other than those two scenes, there's not a lot of gore here. It's a lot more suspense, a lot of tension. You sort of feel a little bit of paranoia, like you're just waiting for the bad thing to happen, and then yeah, it really does. I absolutely love this movie. It felt so authentic. It felt like the late 1970s. I'm somebody that was old enough to have gone through that, and it really feels like that era. The performances were believable. There were many shocking moments. Some might not like the ending. I thought it was actually pretty good. And it did make you think about Jack Delroy and how he perhaps was not quite as charming and as sympathetic as he appeared to be earlier in the film. I think it gave you a sense that this was a complicated character and there was a lot more going on that we didn't necessarily see on the surface. But I'm a huge fan of this. I do think this is an instant classic for me. I give it 4 stars. Tracy, how about you?
Um wow. I'll give you my rating right now, and then I got a couple of different little tidbits to share. I'm gonna say it was a 4.5, Bruce. And you know,
Mm.
I'm really hard to please. So this I've never actually given a movie like a 4.5, anything that we've chatted about so far. So this is a first for me. um Again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It made $2.8 million in the first 3 days. It's a very low budget movie, but it made a lot of money. And what's really cool is the earnings recorded on its third day were $666,666 gross. So that was pretty cool. Just, the whole 6 part, right? Um, there was a teeny weeny little
Was
bit
that
of
legitimate, or did
controversy.
they stage that?
I think it's legitimate. It's been
Those
reported
numbers are
on
legit?
multiple sites
Really?
that exactly, they pulled it out. It's a
Really?
gross estimate. So I was like, it was interesting. But like, to go back to one of those other movies, so the First Omen, right? When I was doing a little bit of research, the First Omen was kind of compared to one of the newer movies as well, called The Immaculate. Now, I haven't seen The Immaculate yet, but it's kind of the same type of story, but they provided tickets at the theater for their patrons for $6.66 to kind of drive up the hype. So, and it's all around the same time period. So it wouldn't surprise me if the box office on the third day was a little bit guesstimated. But,
Yeah.
interesting nonetheless. But there was a little controversy. This film did use a little bit of AI. So it was only for 3 of the still images during the movie. And as you know, like, AI was a big topic of discussion during the recent strikes. But there were a group of individuals who kept insisting that we shouldn't go see this movie because it used AI. But my understanding, it was only 3 still images. So, those images when they switched to a commercial break, it was just those 3 pictures.
Yeah.
So, although they did use AI to create them, the Carnes brothers, who wrote and directed this film, gave full credit to their amazing graphics team, who worked so hard on the film for absolutely everything, including enhancing these 3 AI images. So, although they were initially AI generated, those 3 still pictures, they were fully revamped by their whole
Right.
team. So, I don't think that's a big deal. But by far, it's one of the best horror flicks I've seen in a really long time. Never a dull moment, and it
Yeah.
held my attention for the full hour and 26 minutes. Um, yeah, great twist for a modern horror movie. I was so impressed. It was weird.
Boy, they're really reaching if they're going to criticize a film for 3 AI images that are on screen for maybe 15 seconds total. I mean, if that's the best that
Mhm.
you can come up with, that's an indication of just how great this film is. So both Tracy and I love
Exactly.
it. Tracy likes it even more, gives it 4.5 stars. I give it 4 stars. We like this film better than the first movie we talked about, although we thought that's worthwhile too. The First Omen, Tracy gave it 2.5 stars. I went with 3.5 stars. We're going to continue with this podcast, this episode of the Ghostly Gallery in just a moment. We'll come back after a short break. We have some more horror trivia to test ourselves with. And Tracy has a couple of notes to introduce from the contemporary world of horror, some horror news potentially involving Mike Flanagan. We continue right here on the Ghostly Gallery podcast. We are back on the Ghostly Gallery podcast. Bruce Marcuson along with Tracy Asteria. And it's time now to delve once again into the world of horror trivia. So, Tracy, we're going to test our knowledge here. I've got a series of 8 questions. And this is actually from a horror trivia game that I was given as a Christmas present. So I want to give some credit to that. It just says horror trivia. I don't know what else the game would be called. But they have cards. Each card features 2 questions. So I picked out a few. I'm going to start with an easy one. And if you don't get this, we're hopeless. We'll have to end the show at that point. So here's the first question. What 1971 film features a group of killer rats that are led by a man seeking revenge on those who have wronged him?
I'm going to have to say Willard. Please let it be Willard.
Of course, it is Willard. Yes, absolutely. The movie starring a young Bruce Davison as the title character. He is an awkward young man. He is treated very poorly at work by Ernest Borgnine and by Michael Dante, our friend. We had Michael on the program back in the fall to talk about this film, among other topics. So we're both very well versed in the world of Willard. So yes, Willard is correct. We both get credit 1 for 1 in trivia. We'll see how we can do. Here's another question. I thought this one is relatively easy. It's certainly easy for me because the answer has a connection to the Cooperstown area. But here's the question, Tracy. What 1970s pop music icon starred as Nikki in the David Cronenberg film Videodrome?
Oh, that's
pop
definitely
music icon.
Blondie for sure. Definitely Blondie.
And do you know Blondie's real name?
I do not know her real name. Oh,
Well,
Deborah Harry. Deborah Harry.
Yeah,
That's
right.
it.
Yep.
Okay.
Deborah Harry, the lead singer of Blondie. And Deborah Harry grew up in the Cooperstown area. Her parents were from Cooperstown. She grew up in the town. This was before I got to Cooperstown in the mid-1990s, but she's very well known in our neck of the woods. So you are correct, Deborah Harry, the lead singer of Blondie. Really good actress, too. She's very good in Videodrome. So we are 2 for 2 on trivia. Now they're going to get a little bit harder. Here's about trivia about a film from 1982. This 1982 movie features an escaped mental patient with a drill who decides to crash a high school student's slumber party. I'm really not sure about this one. Got a couple of possible answers rolling around. You want to give it a guess?
Oh my gosh, I can't even fathom
1982, mental patient with a drill. Any idea?
I do not know.
All right, well, I'll give you a couple of thoughts that I have going around. There was a movie called Slumber Party Massacre, which I've actually interviewed some of the people in the movie, but I've never seen the movie. So I don't know if there's a drill involved, but it did come out around this time. And there was a student slumber party, so it makes sense, Slumber Party Massacre. But then there was another movie about a killer with a drill, an electric drill, maybe the Toolbox Murders, but I want to say that was 1970s. I don't think that was 1982. So I'm going to go with Slumber Party Massacre, just see if that's right. And I am right. All right.
Oh, nice.
Even though I didn't see the movie, I remember talking to some of the actors and actresses in the film. So I am 3 for 3. You are 2 for 3, which is not bad. All right. We move on to the next question. The more recent horror film here. Which actor asks, "You mean there are snakes out there this big?" in the movie Anaconda? Which actor asked that question? You mean there are snakes out there this big? You remember that movie, Anaconda?
I've never seen it, Bruce. I've never seen that movie.
I've seen it once. It's not that great. I can only remember 2 actors in the movie. One is Jennifer Lopez, and the other is Jon Voight. So if I were to guess, I have to guess one of them. I do remember at one point Jon Voight is completely swallowed by the anaconda. So
Oh
you would
my
have had to have
gosh.
said that earlier in the movie. Yeah. Oh, it's a crazy scene. It's not that great a movie, but that scene does stand out. It's kind of memorable.
Oh wow.
I'm
I
gonna
wouldn't even guess
say
Jennifer Lopez
I'm
would
gonna
be
say
in a
Jennifer
movie like
Lopez.
that. Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah, she's the lead. You want to guess
Wow.
one of those
Okay.
two? Either Lopez or Voight? Which
I'm
one?
gonna go with John Voight. He's an
I'm going
excellent
with
actor.
Lopez. All right. So you go with Voight. I go with Lopez. Let's see if either of us are right. We're both wrong. It's Ice Cube. Ice Cube. He's a rapper,
Really?
right? He is in the
He
movie.
is.
Now I
Really?
remember that. Yeah. Didn't know it was him. Yeah.
Huh.
So I fall to 3 out of 4, and you're now 2 out of 4. Ice Cube would be the correct answer. All right, let's go back to 1982 for our next question. What 1982 film, directed by Wes Craven, centers around a scientist who is transformed into a plant-based monstrous creature? Ooh, this is a tough
Oh.
one. 1982 Wes Craven.
Oh my goodness.
Any ideas?
No ideas. Oh,
I can think of Wes
it's
Craven
like
movies. Last House on the Left, but that's 1972.
yeah, and
And
that's
I can think of later films, but what did he
yeah,
do in 1982?
because that would have been right before
It's
Nightmare
not
on
a
Elm Street.
Reanimator.
No.
Yes. I think that came out in 85. So this is 3 years before
Mhm.
that. What 1982 film directed by Craven centers around a scientist who is transformed into a plant-based monstrous creature? Hmm.
I'd have to pass on that one.
Gonna pass? There's no
Mhm.
passing. Passing's not allowed.
Neither's
I have
phone a
no idea
friend.
either. Um, yeah. You know, a movie that came out around this time, and I haven't seen it in so long, Swamp Thing? What could it be Swamp Thing? I'm gonna just a
Yeah.
wild guess, Swamp Thing. It is Swamp Thing. Wow. That just sort of popped into my head there.
I
I
did not
really
know
had no idea.
that's a Wes Craven movie. I did not know that.
I didn't
I'm gonna
realize
write
that
that
either.
down.
That's interesting. Yeah. I did not realize
Huh.
that. So I'm 3 out of 5. You're now 2 out of 5. Swamp Thing was the correct answer, though. All right, now we go to some television. 1990s. What is the name of the main character who studies witchcraft in the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer? What's the name of the main character who studies witchcraft in the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Do you watch the show? Have you watched it?
I'm very guilty. No, I have not watched Buffy. I should have
You
watched
have not.
Buffy, but
All right.
I have not. But I do know that the answer is not Buffy.
It's not Buffy.
No.
There is a librarian in the show who knows a lot about witchcraft, and he kind of serves as an advisor to Buffy. I haven't watched the show in a while. I cannot remember the name of the character or the actor, so I'm stumped on this one. Oh no, it's actually Willow Rosenberg. That is her friend, kind of her sidekick in the show.
Oh, really? Okay.
Um, yeah, it's the actress is the one. Um, How I Met Your Mother, that TV series. What's her name?
Yeah. Um,
Short actress, Allison Hannigan.
okay.
Yep, that's who it is. So Willow Rosenberg, Buffy's sidekick. All right, we've got, let's see, 2 more questions to go. This is from Netflix, 2017. What 2017 Netflix film involves a boy who accidentally witnesses a cult ritual in his house and then has to survive the night? And the answer is not Stranger Things. 2017 Netflix film involves a boy. He witnesses a cult ritual. It takes place in his house, and then he has to survive the night.
Oh my
It's not one of the
gosh.
Mike Flanagan movies or series.
No. The first film that came to mind is Hereditary, but it's not Hereditary. I don't know, but I would love to know the name of the movie.
All right. I think we're going to strike out on this one. And the answer is The Babysitter. Not familiar with that one.
I've never heard
Netflix
of
film
it.
The Babysitter. I have not seen that one. I've not heard of that one either. Who
I
came
might
up with
have
these
to look it
questions?
up.
Yeah. All right. So I'm 3 for 7. You're 2 for 7. One last question for each of us. Let's see if we can finish on a stronger note. You like M. Night Shyamalan, right?
I do,
You
yes.
like his movies?
I
All right.
do.
So this is from that category. What 2016 M. Night Shyamalan film is about a kidnapper with 23 different personalities who is about to unleash the 24th? 2016 M. Night Shyamalan film. I've seen a lot of his movies, The Sixth Sense, The Village, the movie about Mr. Glass.
Oh my gosh.
The one
I
with
don't
Mel
think I've seen
Gibson.
this. Yes.
23 different personalities, and he's about to unleash the 24th.
I
This has
don't
me
know that
stumped.
one, Bruce. I don't think I've seen it.
Not familiar with that
Now I
one?
need to know. No.
All right, let's see. The correct answer is Split. I've not seen that one. Have you seen
Either.
Split?
I haven't. I'm going to write that one down too. I don't think I've actually
Yeah.
ever heard of that one.
Yeah, it's vaguely familiar, but I definitely have not seen it. But that's the movie from 2016. All right. We're struggling here. 3 for 8 for me, 2 for 8 for you. We got to finish on a good note. So here's an easy one. What movie's tagline was, "Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water"? It's got to be Jaws.
I have to say Jaws.
No, it's Jaws 2. Jaws 2.
Jaws
Yeah.
2.
Jaws 2.
It doesn't matter. It's
We'll
still
take
a
credit
point.
for that one. I didn't do well. Neither of us did particularly well there. Tough questions.
Not at all. Holy
Maybe
cow.
Yeah, next time we'll have to go back to multiple choice. At least multiple choice gives us a 25% shot of getting the right answer.
Exactly.
All right, before we wrap the episode up, I know that, Tracy, you had a couple of other items that you wanted to talk about, and these are some new potential projects, one of them involving our favorite director, Mike Flanagan. What have you heard on that subject?
So this is pretty cool. This just came out in an article a couple of days ago with Deadline. And both Blumhouse and Universal have confirmed that they're in talks with Mike Flanagan to direct the new Exorcist movie. So, as you know, David Gordon Green directed and co-wrote Exorcist the Believer in 2023, but he has stepped down for the remaining Exorcist movies that are scheduled to be made. It was previously mentioned that there would be 3 of them, so it would have been the one that we just saw, The Believer. And then it was going to be in 2025, The Deceiver. And then I believe it's 2028. It's yet still untitled, right? But yeah, Mike Flanagan is in talks with the production company to take this project on. And whether it's just, the next one or if it will be the remaining series, then that would be phenomenal. I think he would bring so much to the table to elevate that franchise because I know The Believer didn't do so great and critics were very harsh. It wasn't really the best movie I have seen. So I would be really curious to see what he could do with the Exorcist movies.
Yeah, I think that's potentially good news. He's a guy that has a real sense of history, and he likes to pay homage to horror history, but he's willing to put things in a modern context and kind of twist things around and make it apply to the real world of today. He's very good at that, and maybe he's the right person to try a franchise like The Exorcist. So that is potentially exciting news that Mike Flanagan might be involved with one of those Exorcist films, maybe the two remaining. You also were telling me that there is a Russell Crowe project that is in the offing. What's going on there?
So there's actually two. So I've not seen The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe. I've heard great things about it, and I will be seeing it eventually. But they are going to release a sequel for that film. It's in the works. And they're talking that it could be a series of 3 movies. So they're talking about making it like a mini franchise. So that's the first part. And then there's something a little bit different because this is more Russell Crowe news. So this summer, the release date is June the 7th. There's a new movie coming out, and it's called The Exorcism. So it's another, same type of a movie. It has nothing to do with the Pope's Exorcist. It's completely different. It will release in the theaters, but it will go straight to streaming as well for Shudder. And Shudder's been picking up a lot of really great horror movies. So, it's the trailer looks excellent. I've seen the trailer. Oddly enough, it it looks like it pays homage to some of the bad luck of the older horror movies while they were being made. So there was weird happenings on the Poltergeist, some tragedy. I mean, even in The Exorcist, while they were filming, there was stuff that had gone on, as well as The Omen. There were things that had happened, right? So it's kind of a movie like that. It takes place on a movie set, and it appears to show Russell Crowe actually being possessed by a demon of sorts. I'll be waiting for this to come out. I can't wait to see it. It looks really good. Like I said, I'm finding a lot of the movies that are hitting Shudder have been different, but they've been really good. So I think, the trailer's available on YouTube, but it looks really good. It's called The Exorcism. So yeah, it's available on YouTube to watch that trailer. I definitely recommend it. And it will hit the theaters on June 7th.
Now, is he playing himself or he's playing a different character?
No, he's playing a different character. From what I could tell, it looks like he's playing a priest. Okay. And whether or not he's just playing a priest, or if his character is actually a priest, I can't really tell.
Yeah.
But it looks interesting.
And that's coming out this summer, right?
Yep, June the 7th.
All right, very good. Russell Crowe's a great actor. He's one of the great actors, I think, of our time. First became aware of him with L.A. Confidential back in 1997. And, of course, he's done a lot of great films since then as well, including The Pope's Exorcist. All right, Tracy. Well, thank you for helping out with movie reviews, looking at Late Night with the Devil and The First Omen. And we both have to work on our trivia. We'll have to practice for the next time. I think I will have multiple choice in our next go round with that. But thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
So that's Tracy Asteria. I'm Bruce Markison, your co-host for the Ghostly Gallery podcast. We thank you for joining us in this Museum of the Macabre, and we hope you'll be with us next time right here in the Ghostly Gallery.